Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Curry Parker. I'm so excited here to have somebody who I just love and adore and have so much awe and respect for, Rosy Aronson, here with me today. Rosy, if you don't know her, go find out about her immediately. She's the creator of the Wisdom Keepers. I don't want to call it a program. It's like maybe program is a good word. You've got a series of books, you've got a series of cards, you've got a series of archetypes that are sort of inherently, I think, inherently invoke creativity and a creative response. And as part of the contemplation that you offer, you've been working with creativity and the idea of creativity as a therapist for many years, right? I'm getting that right. You're just, as I said, an incredible role model of creativity, somebody who I think in the big picture narrative of human design and Gene Keys, which you work with a lot as well, I think really bring a heart to this body of work that is very unique, very soft, and very, at the same time, opening and catalytic. So I'm excited to have you here today, just chatting a wee bit about what we're going to be talking about at conference this year.
Thank you so much, Karen. It's so nice to be here.
Yeah,
I feel like we have like a sweet little ritual. Like I'm remembering last year, now this year, and I get to touch base with you and tell you how much I adore and admire you.
Yeah, well, back at you.
Probably gonna cry because I'm so moved by the work that you do in the world and the devotion with which you do it. Yeah.
And me too. I feel like I've had major fangirl moments talking to everybody all this time. And of course, every time I talk to you, I'm just moved because you have this courageous way of just sort of taking off the veil of your heart and putting it into the body of work that you contribute. And your Wisdom Keeper series, I think, are such a beautiful embodiment of the energy of each of the 64 archetypes and the gates of the human design system, and really bring to people a new way of reframing their perspective on the gates. Yeah, and this year's theme in conference is creativity. And I love the theme of creativity because I think it's a good way to leap from our last year's theme. And last year's theme was feminine leadership. And I think this isn't so much about the gender identity of female as much as it's about the archetype of the right brain and the archetype of that sensing circuit, right, in human design that says, how can we start changing what we create in the world by beginning to change our relationship with our narrative? And how do we use, and this is what you do so beautifully, how do we use the archetypes? And I think human design is such a great tool for this, or the 64 hexagrams are such a great tool for this. How do we use these archetypes as a contemplative tool to start reimagining, if you will, a different creative response to the parts of who we are? Is that a good way of saying that?
Beautiful.
So I wanted to explore with you the relationship between the work you do and human design. How did you go from that, that triangular chart that I think it's sometimes in the way we talk about it, so, in its original inception is kind of cold and sort of alien. How did you go, oh, I'm going to create this magnificent body of work that's very creative and lively and beautiful from that little triangle?
Oh, I love that question. Okay, so you already said something that I want to flag, which is, I guess, if I have one consistent practice, spiritual practice in my life, ever since I was born, it's the creative process. So that must have been one authentic part of myself that I came in with, and I just was very much in touch with from the very beginning. And so even when I first was introduced to that triangle, and I had that same feeling, like, what is this weird angular, system that's with the hard edges and the you're this and self and not self. I had those kind of like first impressions of it, but intuitively, especially when I started just getting just little bits of information about my own design, it resonated at such a deep level, that it ignited, or it kind of gave me permission to set free that creative spark that had already been very much alive in my life. So, and I guess we're talking human design, so my profile is the 3-5. Right. So already we have that 3, which just in its own nature is a very creative, alchemistic, experimental energy, which has always been in my life. But maybe I have felt, maybe because of that 5 and the projections that I had to field and the judgments and the expectations and always being afraid of letting people down, I kind of kept the 3 a little bit hidden, or I would allow it to come out through my support of other people's authentic creative self, through my creative arts therapy practices and stuff. So human design kind of gave me permission to live it even more out loud and to breathe through the discomfort that comes from being projected upon as someone who's got it figured out, when really all I'm here to do is dive into the experiment, make a ton of mistakes, and learn from those mistakes and allow something beautiful to emerge from them. So I guess for me, human design was like a huge permission, what do they say, slip, to be myself. And then it led me all kinds of forbidden places, including away from human design in some ways, not in my heart. I always felt like I belonged. And this is something we talked a lot about last year during our interview. But because I wasn't able to present it or to transmit it in the most pure form, I felt somehow kind of like a little bit ostracized from the community, which is extremely painful for me because I felt I was just one of the evolutionary strands, like doing my thing. That's what we're all doing, right? We're all supposed to be ourselves and evolve it and allow it to unfold, and which brings in the gene keys, which is another kind of like, it's another like major kind of big bang that came out of the human design seed.
I love that. I love that metaphor. I'm going to borrow that and I'm going to credit you for it.
Oh, yeah. I think we're all big bangs, right? Like, so we get the one big bang, and then it's kind of like the, what is it? You know more about this than me, but the Jewish thing about the original vessel that breaks into a million shards, and we're all just trying to find our way home. But we can't come back together and heal the world, tikkun olam, unless we also allow our own individual shards to shine totally and brightly and individually, and then we can find our way back to repair this wounded world of ours. Boy, that was a huge tangent, but
it was a great tangent though.
So anyway, it just kind of, I just was Rosy, right? So human design said it's okay to be Rosy, and then I was Rosy, and then Rosy interacted with human design as Rosy interacts with everything, as you interact with human design and everything, and then things came out of that, like natural desires to bring together these different streams of passion that I have in my life. Well, I know so much about the expressive arts. How can I bring that into human design so people can start to learn about their design, not through this very mechanistic, heady format, but through something that's lived and experiential and fun and playful. How can I bring in all my interest in psychology, in transpersonal psychology, into human design, so that we're also doing this from a grounded place. So that's not just that we're learning what's not self and what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to do it, but we have some support in knowing why it's so hard to do it. And we have some support around that, right? So it's not just this black and white thing. So I'm constantly finding ways to synthesize my different passions. And I think that's why I was so drawn to Richard Rudd's Gene Keys from the very beginning, because it's another enormous synthesis. And it also isn't so reliant on you knowing exactly the time that you were born. It's not so, you could just go into one of the archetypes, and that might be enough to just like take you to the goddess, right? So I like the simplicity of that. And I kind of feel like in my life, I'm moving increasingly away from numbers and channels and systems towards simple human things that we can all relate to. So the wisdom keepers, these are human beings with stories. We've all got a story, and we've all suffered, and we all have pain, and we all have fear. We've all had to learn how to like breathe through that in order to become ourselves, in order to see that we're all connected, even though many times we feel separate. So that was just like a natural evolution, I would say. And then and this is what I'm going to be talking about in the conference. I'm not just going to be talking, I'm going to give like a slideshow of videos from my life.
It's going to be a Rosy multimedia production again.
Well, don't have like your highest hopes, but it'll be fun and interesting because I'm going to show how when you're really in a creative flow, one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, and none of it is planned. None of it is orchestrated. And often one thing leads to another challenge. And when we're challenged, then we have to be creative.
Right.
Like, and that's what's happening in our world right now. I don't see how we're going to get out of this or transform what's happening without creativity. I have no idea how we're going to do that. So any way I can embody creativity, inspire creativity, support people in being creative, learn how to breathe through my own creative impulses, even though they take me to very scary, unknown places. The more I feel I'm doing at least my little sliver in the pie of the solution to our complex systems world problems.
I love that. I love that. And I love your sliver of the pie. It's a juicy piece of pie. So, I want to end with just one thing, sort of bringing it back to one thing that you said. And this is something that, I've been mulling about a lot myself just in the last few years. You know, I've taught a lot of students and doing human design for 22 years now, almost 23 years, you know, watching and of course doing that hand in hand with social media in the last few years, watching the accelerated rate that information gets transmitted and shared, and most beautifully watching my students now share human design on social media and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, right? And looking at it's just so cool to see how every single person who's been on this journey, whether it's Gene Keys or human design or whatever, but you know, in particular in this little field that we're in, you know, watching everybody take that seed and do their own thing with it and synthesize it in their own way and express it in their own way and share it in their own way. It is such a really, really amazing, beautiful, crazy quilt of self-expression happening because of that seed. And you know, I love that you acknowledge that. I love that you're so grounded in your part of it. I feel that same way, that it's like I got seeded. I actually say this all the time. It's like I got seeded, right? I love to watch how the seed is duplicating itself and replicating itself and expanding and mutating, because it is a mutative system in all these beautiful ways. And I'm so excited to bring us all together again in community, to continue being in community with each other in all the ways that we are. And I'm just really excited to have you again come and share with this community of people who've been implanted by the seed to really continue to blossom. So it's going to be so fun. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Colorado. Well, you're not going to be live, you're going to be broadcast, but seeing you, but there'll be a lot of people live in the room. We have almost 100 people coming live in the room.
Fantastic.
So we'll have an opportunity to hang out, to talk, to contemplate, to talk to you via screen and to really hear your story about human design and how people, and Gene Keys, and how people can use the archetypes of the wisdom keepers to really tap into not just the goddess, but I think the heart of who they are, which is, you know, really the end goal, I think. So awesome.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you for joining me here today. What an honor, as always, to have you share 20 short minutes with me. Thank you.
My total pleasure.